So, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about my recent endeavors into coding. Let's go ahead and get started. So, this is the Xcode. Welcome to Xcode. You know what it is. It's kind of the program that we're going to be using to do some coding. We're going to use the language Swift, the basic ideas of building an app that can go on the App Store and you can play on your phone. And this is having to go deep into the code of what happens when you press this button, then this happens, and if you press this button, then this happens, what the person sees and what you see. So this is the program we're going to be using. As you can see, this is the main storyboard. This is kind of the what everybody's going to see when they open your app. And these are all the items that you can put on there. What we're going to do right now is we're going to search up image and get it on there so that I can show you kind of what you do when you're trying to put something on a storyboard. So pretty much all you do here is drag and drop, and there it is. That's an image. You can upload pictures into the software and then put that picture on that image so it can be a picture instead of just a nothing. But we're going to play it right now and see what happens. You can't see the image that you put on, and there are two reasons for that. The two reasons are really that it's an object that you can see through. It doesn't have a color to it, so it's there, you just can see right through it and you don't really see it. So we're going to change its color to blue over here on the right. Make sure you're in the correct tab up above. And then it's going to be seeable if you run it. But there's another reason you really can't really put it exactly where you want, is you can see it now, but maybe that's not where you want it to be. Maybe you want it somewhere else. And what I'm going to introduce here is the idea of a constraint. How you can center it vertically or horizontally. And all you have to do to add a constraint is just click the little checkboxes and then press add both constraints. And then it should load it and add it onto your... What you do here is you go down and update your frames so that it updates it to where the constraints are in the correct place and the image is following the constraints. Can't even see it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click the image, and then we're going to use the constraints down here, and we're just going to delete those. Then we're going to go down here, and this is another way to add constraints. This is to add, we're going to go ahead and uncheck this constraint to margins. It's not what we want to do. It's not really something that we mess with. And then to add constraints, you make sure that the constraints from either top, bottom, sides are highlighted to what you want. So then you can just fill in how far you want it from the top or the bottom of the side where you have it highlighted, and then press add to constraints. And now it should show up 50 from the top and 50 from the left, which it seems to be doing, but it also seems to be very, very small, which is another thing that we can deal with. Well, there it is, once we update the frames, which is another thing that we can deal with constraints. Constraints are the most useful thing ever. So we're going to come here and we're going to check these height and width boxes. As you can see, they're pretty low right now. So what we can do is we can change them to a simple 50 so that it's a good square. And then add two constraints, and then once we update the frames, it's going to be a good size. So now that's how you get the image, the size that you want and where you want it. That's really the most efficient way to do it. If you want to do it dragging the corners, then it's not going to work all the time. Your app's going to crash a lot more often than not. Well, that's kind of how you do that, and you do the same with anything else in here, with buttons, stuff like that. But those things have to be connected to your controller outlet or your controller.swift, which is your code in general. The images are going to be connected to if you're going to animate them, and we're going to move on to that pretty quick here. So this is kind of the main storyboard of my idea. Right now the background's in front for some reason, but this is kind of it. I got my button down here. It says DL. I have it hooked up, so this is what happens when you run it. It looks different than the storyboard, but that's just because the constraints are being different on the storyboard because I have it different in pan view. But these are my labels. They change whenever we flip the cards, so we're going to go ahead and flip them. Okay, so here's an 8 to 4, so the 8 is higher than the 4, so the player 1 gets a point. That's pretty much how it works. What happens when you press play, then it randomizes a number from 1 to 13, and then it says whichever one's higher, well then that player gets a point. I know that's kind of general terms once you actually learn all the coding behind it, but that's kind of how it works. So you've seen the storyboard and you know how most of this works. You set up constraints so that they stay in the same place, and then you can kind of change them around, and then you can set pictures to them by uploading them into your storyboard and then choosing them in this bar here. So here is what all my code looks like. It doesn't look like that much, but it really is. These are images. They are UI images. UI is the kind of already set code that comes along with Swift. You see up here it says import UI kit, which is all of the UI stuff that you can use. This would take a lot more coding if you didn't have the UI kit. And you can see there's an image controller for first, second, third, fourth, for the cards and for the background and stuff like that, and the button. So that's kind of how you get all that. The UI kit is something that's put up by Apple and something that can be really helpful in building. So this is a variable that is a array, and an array doesn't do anything unless you refer to it. An array is kind of like just a room with stuff in it. So the stuff here is then all these are names of pictures that I have already uploaded, and it refers to them when that one is selected. And then this stuff down here, one second. Self playground button entitled play. So this is me retitling, an example of retitling the button from right where it is. And then we've got this override function, display memory. That's just something that's already built in. Is not really necessary. But this is very important. This is function when the button is tapped, and then this UI button is kind of the same thing as the UI image is. It is an already built-in thing that defines tapping. If you kind of know what that means, but function means that this will happen when you do this or something like that. So this let keyword, it's in red. It's the same as var, which is variable. This is the first random number, and this arc for random, it's just something that the UI kit has that randomizes things. And this 13 means that it randomizes a number from 1 to 13. And then under that we have another let first card string equals self card names array, and then first random number. So this, in parentheses, first random number, is referring to the random number that's defined from this let first random number, which is int. So it is matching a card in the array with the random number that's selected. And then self.firstCardImage is just saying with the one that's selected, then you display that card. That's right, you have to have a line for that. I mean, it seems like it shouldn't. And then this over here is the same thing, but for the second card, it randomizes from 1 through 13, and then you get the same thing. But this if statement is the next most important thing. This is how you keep score. And this is one of the most simple things that you can do in Xcode. It's really fun to do. It says if, then you got your first random number is greater than. This is just a simple greater than sign. Your second random number. Then these parentheses mean that this is what happens. Then the player score gets you add 1 to that player score. And then self.player score test. This is saying that the player score label is a text and will go up to 1. So here, 1 second. And will go up to 1. This else if statement says that if that didn't happen and this did, then we're going to do this. So this said if the first number and the second number are the same, then nothing happens. See, there's nothing in the brackets there. And then there's else, which is, it's not else if, it's else, which means it could be anything else that's not already been stated. And the only thing that could happen that's not already been stated is the second card being higher. And then it says player 2 gets +1 point. And then that is defining that the label will go up once the player 2 gets +1. So that's kind of a complete overview of what all this code does. And now we're going to open it up again on play. So I have it in portrait just to show you what it looks like. So when we press play, a lot of things are going to happen. It's going to randomize twice 2 sections of numbers 1 through 13, and then it's going to identify a card name with one of the numbers that's been randomized, and then it's going to display that card name to the corresponding cards, the card 1 and card 2. And each of these cards is being displayed by a UI weak var, which is the UI kit image view. And it's all being displayed by the code, but at the same time by the storyboard. And that's kind of the basic idea of what I did with my coding practice / experience.